Hi, everyone. In this video, you're going to learn what is an even more effective technique for supporting the people you love than giving advice. And I'm really excited to have Fathelbab share this with you. He is a group facilitator and also trains people how to facilitate peer groups, mostly CEO peer groups, but it applies across any group. And ever since he shared this with me and my groups that I belong to, it has really transformed the way our groups operate, and we get so much more out of them now. And it's also transformed the way I communicate with the people I care about most and the way they communicate with me. And it's allowed us to be so much more helpful to each other. Well, first off, Mo, what is experience sharing? Because I think it might sound like a simple concept, but it's so profound.
Yeah, experience sharing is telling exact stories that are relevant. So what have I been through that is my experience, and not in generalizations, but what is an exact story that is relevant to the situation or to what I'm being asked.
Is it a muscle to develop the habit of not giving advice when someone shares what's going on with their life? Or what has that process been like for you?
It is a muscle. And part of developing that muscle is to have constant reminders. And the reminders are not just, self-imposed, but, certainly for me, having the luxury of teaching this means every time I talk about it is a reminder for myself.
Why is it more effective?
Why is it more effective? Well, so a variety of reasons. The first is when you give advice, you're jumping to conclusions about what you think is best for the other person. And based on a little story, which is 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, you can't possibly know what it is to be in the other person's shoes. The second thing is when I give advice, I'm making stuff up. Like we tend to just fall into this natural state of making up the simple answer that we think is the panacea for that person without understanding what's going on. The third thing that can go wrong is it could come across as judgmental. And, take the case of somebody being overweight. Well, it's easy for me to tell you to stop eating carbs or bread or stop drinking beer. Easy. Hard for you to do it. Easy for me to tell you not to do it, right? The other thing is when I share my advice, I don't share any of my vulnerability. Mm-hmm. So when I tell you my experience, inherently what's built in is, here's my struggle with it. And here's how I dealt with my own struggle with it. And here's what worked for me. And here's what didn't work for me. And I respect that you have your own struggle with it. So as the receiver, it lands very differently than me pointing my gun saying, here's your answer. What's wrong with you? It lands as if, okay, yeah, I've been there too. And here's how I dealt with it. And that may work for you. It may not work for you, but you know what? There's 9 other people in the room who have their own experience. And really, that's the best we could do. Ultimately, you have to own it. And you have to do what works for you.
Just more data to give them the opportunity to have another reference point about what your experience was and then come to their own decision.
Data with empathy and emotion, right? So today, you could look up anything online and get 10 answers for it. Right? But it's not just about the answers, it's about the struggle.
When someone is working on experience sharing, is there such a thing as being too vulnerable or sharing too personally in what stories that they choose to relate?
Yes. So obviously there's a risk in vulnerability, and that's why it's called vulnerability, because there is this old model where vulnerability was perceived as weakness, right? And so imagine for a second, you have a young person going on their first date. There's vulnerability, and somebody can take advantage of that person, right? So vulnerability inherently has risk as a part of it. So all of us have what we call a risk manager. And for some of us, that risk manager is really, really cranked up. And we tend to err on the side of not being vulnerable at all. And some people may be too vulnerable. The question is, when is it safe? And with whom is it safe? And that's what it comes down to. Really, each person has to make that judgment based on their experience and based on the person with whom they're choosing to be vulnerable. But I certainly don't share something that is as deep or as painful or as risky in a public setting as I would in a private, confidential conversation with 1, 2, or 3 of my best friends.
Is there anything else that you think that we should make sure that the viewers know about experience sharing? It's simple in the execution, but maybe very profound in the effect, and maybe not so
Yeah,
easy to do.
yeah. So I will tell you this. It is very common for somebody who wants help to say, "Can you give me your advice?" And my own interpretation of that is they're looking for help. They may be looking for answers. Those things absolutely do not mean they're looking for advice, meaning me telling them what to do. And so when somebody says, "Hey, I want your advice," my first thing is, well, what's going on? Tell me more. How can I be most helpful? And do you really want me to tell you what to do? Because often one of my best friends would say, "I know you're not going to tell me what to do, but I appreciate your listening. That's really what's most important here. You're such a good listener."
So at that point, do you go from, okay, I'm listening to this situation and now I'm combing my memory for what experience to share that's most relevant? Is that your
Yeah.
next step in your mind?
If they want it, it's funny, often enough, they just want to get it off their chest, right? And so part of what happens to me socially that I've become very aware of is sometimes people don't even get to get stuff off their chest because somebody interrupts, either peppering them with questions or with, "Well, here's what you got to do." And so the very first thing that I think is a big gift for really deepening relationships and creating that safe space is for people to know they're being heard. And is this person really get me? Are they hearing what's going on for me? And I've also learned in doing this work that people really feel more heard when we hear their emotions,
Mm.
even more so than if we hear the specifics of the facts.
And then from there, if they wanted it, that's when you would use experience sharing as a way to relate or possibly equip them with one more person's story about how you dealt with it.
Yeah, yeah. And listen, it's a natural, fluid conversation and there aren't rules when we're just friends, right? I may share an experience, of course, if I'm compelled and I really have one that I think is very meaningful. But I want to make sure I hear them first.
Well, Mo, I have gotten to experience the kindness that you spread in the world and just the transformative power of experience sharing in groups. So the groups that you've helped train us how to do this, the amount of safety and sharing and learning has just been off the charts since adopting the practices that you've taught us. So I really thank you for just the wonderful kindness and changes you've made in my life through your work, and then also for sharing with the viewers. And I really hope that this will be something that transforms their relationships as well. So thank you for your generosity with your time and with your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's a pleasure working with you and a pleasure doing this interview. And I hope that does help some folks out there. Thank you so much.
I've been speaking to Mo Fathelbab. He's the author of Forum, The Secret Advantage of Successful Leaders. And the link to that book is in the description box right below this video, so be sure to check it out. It explains how to create a peer advisory group that's really transformative. And we've been talking about how to use experience sharing rather than advice giving to really empower the people in your lives and support them in a way that's very digestible for them, not off-putting, and really can improve your relationships. So I hope you try it out, and in the comments below, let me know how it goes the next time you make a point of sharing an experience rather than giving advice. I'd love to hear from you how that process goes, and also anything that's really you found to be useful as you support the people in your life. So if there are other techniques, tips, and tricks that you know of that or that you've tried that work well, I'd love to hear from you. And then you can subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when we upload a new video each week. Crown Pointers is your source for tips, tricks, and pointers for the adventure of everyday life. Bye, everyone.